But I said to myself that I've got to find a way to take this chess program and influence so many others. And the teachers encouraged me and said, you know what, you ought to take these students out to play against other schools, because the students had started beating all of the teachers right away. The one thing about our children is that if they master something, that you know it won't take them long, and they'll be ready to move on to something else. They will rise to the level of our expectations. And so I said, I'm going to take these students out to play against other elementary and middle schools. And I did. There was a problem. They started winning right away. That's not a good recipe for children. They became arrogant. They became self-centered. You don't know any children like that. I said to myself, I got to find a way to challenge these children. And so I said, new rule. From this point on, we only play against high schools. No more elementary and middle schools. So they started losing, and see, this is what I wanted. They were losing, they were frustrated, but it made them work hard. The children need to understand that failure is motivating. Success can be paralyzing. That they need to know that failure is the building blocks for their successes later on. The problem for me, again, was it was only a matter of time before they started beating these high schools. And then they beat Central High School, which was Bill Cosby's old high school, one of the oldest high schools in America. It was an all-boys school for a very long time, one of the top schools in Philadelphia. And so the teacher said, if these students are doing this, sir, you need to start taking them to chess tournaments. And I said, you want me to travel with Bebe's kids? They said, yes, you need to. And so I decided in 1997, in February 1997, as a matter of fact, this very same weekend, so you know my wife was not happy, to take my students to the U.S. Amateur Championship, the largest team versus team event in the world, larger than the Olympics, over 220 teams, no age limit. I packed the students in the van, and I told them, if the furniture is not in the van when we arrive, I do not want it in the van when we leave. And they agreed. No hotel furniture in this van. And we had one of our students who had been evicted from his home, and the landlord wouldn't allow us to go in and get his belongings, so the teachers and the church folks in the community all raised money to give him what he needed to make it on his trip. And of course, he wanted Sean John and Air Jordan. We were able to get him some Air Gordons, and he was happy. But he made the trip. But this is what the community does. This is what people like you do for our children. And so we arrived in Parsippany, New Jersey, right near New York, and our first match, my students were matched up against Bucknell University's chess team. And one of their players was a graduate student who came back to play with his friends. And I told my children, see, you went to the high schools, now's the next level. You're going to play against colleges and play against adults, but remember, you were losing, but you'll be winning eventually. Take this as a lesson. And after the match, I was proud of my students, because after losing, they were happy. The girls were jumping rope, the guys were. I said, this is what I like to see. They said, yeah, but there's one problem, Mr. L. We beat that team. So I went to find the graduate student. I said, sir, I need to know what happened. He said, no, I have two questions for you. Are these middle school kids or midget adults? He said, who is the chess master that works with these children? I said, we're from a poor school district. We can't afford a chess master. These children are surrounded by teachers who teach them that success only comes before work in the dictionary, that they need to work hard. So the children are there every evening, coming on Saturdays, holiday weekends, they're there, working hard, knowing that they may not have access to what some of those other children have, the technology and the other things, but they can work hard to overcome that. And so the next day, that young man who had been evicted from his home, he was matched up against an expert level player, a player who was in his mid-40s and been playing about 20 years, and most of the coaches were upset. How could they match this young man up against this a 40-year-old player who had been playing so long? It's unfair. And they encouraged me to complain to the tournament director, and I did. And he said, sir, you need to understand, we use a Swiss system. We match the best players against the worst, and they work their way toward the middle. He said, but you need to go and look at that chessboard. And I looked at the board, and my young man was losing. And it was what I expected. And I went around to the other side and looked the same way. Remember what I taught those special education students? Because I said, wait a minute, it looks like he's winning. A chessboard is a square. It's the same on all four sides. It was the first time in 35 years of U.S. chess history that a novice or beginner player had ever defeated an expert level player. Had never been done before. And I went to the young man's name was Demetrius, but we called him Meat. I said, Meat, how'd you beat that guy? He said, Mr. I don't know, his friends were rude. They were bringing him beer, making noise. I couldn't concentrate. He said, but I sat there and I thought about all the people back home that helped me get here that didn't know me. And he said, I'm going to leave everything I have on this table before I leave this game. And he said, after a while, Mr. L, it was like I wasn't even moving to pieces, like somebody else was moving to pieces. And he said, I made a move, and it forced this guy to think for 35 minutes. And I knew I had him. And I went to talk to the tournament director, and he said, sir, he said, first of all, you didn't even have faith in your own player. He said, but you need to understand this is something that has never been done before. We're going to write an article in Chess Life magazine about this young man and his teammates. He said, but I also want you to understand that we had a chess master analyze his game. And said that young man's thinking was superior to every adult who was there, even yours, coach. And it shows you the power of our children, that if we believe in them until they believe in themselves, they can be successful. He said, but we want to treat your students to dinner in a hotel restaurant. And I said, sir, you don't want to let my kids in your restaurant. This is a Hilton hotel. You give me a few dollars, I'll take them to McDonald's and they'll be happy. He said, no, this has never been done before. We want to treat them to dinner in the restaurant. So I took the students, 15 kids, outside the restaurant, and the menu was outside because they want you to read the menu and then decide if you want to come inside. So I told the students, when we go inside, if you can't pronounce it, don't order it. They went inside and ordered filet mignon, crab biscuit. But that was their experience. They're children who eat like that on a regular basis. But for our children, this was exposure. See, there's a large achievement gap, but there's also a major exposure gap. Most researchers will tell you that 75% of the students that we work with, the 3/4 of their trips, if they're not going to school, will be within a few miles of their home. That our children need to be able to go out and see what the world is like, see the diversity that is out there, and understand that there's unity and power in diversity, but understand that those college campuses and the world is going to be quite different maybe from the community you come from. And I think that's why our students struggle when they go away to college, because they aren't quite ready for what they're going to see, because this is what the world is going to be like. And so for me to have the opportunity to take those students to tournaments, because at that tournament in New Jersey, they went on to win first place. They defeated a team of 4 men whose combined age was over 200 years, never done before. And all this is in the chess history books. So these students later on in 1997, in the same year, went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and won the national championship. Our students have won 8 national championships, 7 consecutive titles, never done before in America by suburban, private, any school. Inner city students who are supported by people just like you, who know that these children simply need somebody to walk up to them and tell them that I love you, I care about you. It doesn't matter what you say, I loved you before I even met you. That's so overpowering for a child to be able to hear that they begin to believe that they can do anything. And so then Arnold Schwarzenegger came to visit our school. He heard about all the things that were going on, and he wanted to brag about how he was such a great chess player growing up in Europe. He makes everybody on the movie set play chess. I said, Arnold, you came to the wrong school bragging about chess. Now, you want to talk about terminating people, that's fine. You want to talk about being expendable, that's fine. Don't talk about chess. He said, no, I want to play one of your students. I said, no, you don't. Then he made a big mistake and challenged one of my young ladies. You don't want to fool around. I'm telling you, with these girls in chess, they don't play around. And he challenged young Denise Pickard, honor roll student, pink glasses, uniform every day. She's in church every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. She's powerful. Mother was confined to a wheelchair, being raised by elderly grandparents, but Denise was also one of the top 50 female chess players in the nation in her age division. And I told Arnold, don't mess with Denise. And she said, you know, I was nervous. Mr. L, he's rich, he's famous, he's married to a woman who has more money than him, so I know he's upset. I said, oh, Denise, they cheat you early, huh? She said, but I looked at him just like he was another guy, and I checkmated him. Arnold said, you terminated the Terminator. But then he wrote a check for our program for $25,000, and we've never received a dime from our school district. We raise money for our children. Teachers and churches and local organizations all support our program and our students. And our students travel all over the country to play chess. Portland, Oregon, Arizona, New York, Vermont. Our students have even traveled to Yugoslavia to play against the national team. And of course, they started fighting at the Capitol over there, but that's what our kids do. But the idea is that they have these rich, these cultural experiences. And so I said to myself, how can I find a way to take and transform what I've done in this classroom, in this program, and try to change an entire school? And so I moved on to become a principal in 1999. And I walk into the school believing that I'm going to go in, and my belief is that I'm going to go in and make sure that every person in this building likes me, and I'll be fine. That was the biggest mistake I could have ever made. Because I was so focused on wanting to be the popular principal and not being a successful or effective principal, because if I'm not really upsetting people, I'm not really fighting for my children. But the idea was that let me be the person that everybody would go to the superintendent and say, yeah, you need to keep Principal L there forever, because when I needed a bigger room, he put me in a bigger room. When I needed the heat that was real hot in the winter, he put me there. When I wanted central air, he took care of that. But he never came to me and talked to me about any issues that were truly affecting the success of our children. And I had to do some deep soul searching and try to find out if this was really the profession for me. Because I feared that conflict, and I complained about it. I even talked to my pastor, and he said, listen, you need to understand that the price of leadership is conflict. So if you are not willing, he said, and teachers want you to support them. They want you to push them for the children. And so I said to myself that, because I was in a struggling school trying to turn it around, and I couldn't find any success, and then I realized that because every decision I make was focused and centered on the adults that are here, even on me at times. But it was a tough time for me. And I had a young man, one of my former students, call me at the end of my first year. It was June 2000. And his name was Otis Bullock. He was one of my first chess players, and he had already graduated from high school. He had gone to one of our top engineering and sciences high school, but he struggled and ended up graduating from one of our comprehensive schools. And he called and he said, I just want to let you know I'm graduating from college, Mr. L. I said, Otis, come on now. Really? He said, yes, I am. I said, but I know you struggled at Carver. He said, yeah, but I never lost sight of what I needed to do, and I got back on track, and I'm graduating. He said, but this was Friday. He called me. I'm graduating on Sunday. He said, I don't want you to come, but I just didn't want to walk down that aisle without calling to thank you and ask you to thank all those teachers that helped me when I was younger. I said, wait a minute, Otis, where you graduate? He said, I'm graduating from Westchester State. I said, Westchester State Prison? He said, no, Westchester State University. I said, you don't know how these teachers are going to be overwhelmed to know that one of their kids are graduating. He said, but don't come. He said, just let them know that I made it. And I called, well, first I called my wife, because, see, I got to call her everywhere I go now. And she was pregnant with our first daughter, and it was a tough pregnancy. And I said, you remember Otis? She said, yeah, I remember. And you know how our wives are. Even if they don't remember somebody, they tell us they remember. And she said, I remember Otis. And I said, can we go to the graduation? It was 100 degrees, and we made that hour drive, and we cried through the entire ceremony because we could not believe that one of our kids had graduated. We took pictures of Otis with his professors, with his friends. We took pictures of that young man with people he didn't even know. One of our kids had made it. And Otis shared with us after the program that some of his family didn't come to the graduation, didn't attend. But I said, look in that audience, because every teacher I could find has come out today. Because we've got to find a way to dangle the academic carrot for our children. Some school districts, they shut down schools when they win the football championship or the basketball championship. And I was a high school athlete, so I understand that. But the idea is that our children have to understand and know that there's a reason why they're called a student athlete, that they're students first. And those teachers came out for that young man. And that was in June 2000. In May 2004, that young man, Otis Bullock, graduated from Temple Law School. It was the most powerful moment of my life as a teacher, as a principal, as a role model. I went down on the floor and I showed off that day. I looked at his diploma, because they give you a large diploma when you get a JD. And I said, I want you to go back to your old neighborhood. And all those guys who teased you every day because you listened to your teachers, you wanted to work hard, you show them what happens when you listen. I said, someone will need you to bail them out of jail probably. But I said, but also, you remind them that their fathers teased me when I came home from college and didn't have a job, and when I became a teacher, because I did one of the toughest things you could ever do as a teacher, is I became a teacher in the same neighborhood where I grew up. I became a principal in the same neighborhood. And many times you're viewed, when you support education, you're viewed as the enemy. So it becomes a separate battle trying to shift an entire community to understand that education is your passport. It's the way for us as a community to be able to change our existence, to be able to change our direction. But I know all of that happens right with people like you, right with us as educators, as leaders in our school. I know I would not be here today without people like you. I would not be able to make. That's why when Disney called and said they wanted to make a movie about these students, that we negotiated for 2 years to make sure that this story was not about one exceptional principal, just a few top kids, that this is about the story of hundreds and thousands of teachers and leaders every day who sacrifice time from their own families to try to help other people achieve their dreams. I was telling the superintendent last night that the most special person in the world is the spouse or significant other of an educator, because they do without you so much. They do without us so much. They care for the family. When you're caring for your family in school, they're caring for the family. And that's powerful for somebody to be able to put their own dreams aside to help other people achieve their dreams. That's the most noble servant. And so I say to you today, as you go through your professional development, think about long term about taking some of that time for yourself. Because you know that there are many times when we make these decisions for so many other people, we want to give, that we don't take that time for ourselves. And that might be tough for some of you to hear. And it's tough for me because, see, I got to make sure that I honor my own words that I'm giving you. But we make these commitments to eat right, to exercise, to spend more time with the family, to take time for ourselves. Because, see, you can't be at a team meeting waiting in the hospital for a triple bypass. Now, there's some people who will try to get on the conference call, but you know we can't do that. So we got to take that time for ourselves, because also as leaders in our school, that's an excellent example and being an excellent role model for those people in our buildings as well. And for everybody who's out in the school, being an example for our children. Because we know many of our children may struggle with some of those same issues. Many of our families may struggle with that. But that's what leadership is all about, is we make those decisions that we know will impact not only our school, but the entire community. So I ask you today, folks, as I think about the many children that we save, the many funerals that we're able to prevent, I ask you to ask yourselves, if not now, then who? If not you, if not now, then when? If not you, then who? I ask my teachers, and I'll ask you to stop praying for a lighter load and start praying for a stronger back, because we know it won't get easier, but you were sent here to do this. There are many times, there are many days, I'm sure, where together we've thought about whether this is something I should be doing, I can continue to do. I know there's something else I can do, but you always find that path right back to where you are, because you've been called to do this. You've been called to do it. And you're not, and the call don't get, the equipped folks don't get called. The people who get called are given the equipment to do what they need to do to be able to reach children. So when we hesitate and think about it, we just need to follow that path and don't worry about the struggles, because the struggles are part of the process. And that's what I'm trying to deal with now as a principal, as a father, as a instructional leader in my school, is let's not focus on the responses. When I go in to observe a teacher, I'm not really that impressed when a child gives you the correct response, because that could simply be them giving back to you what you gave them yesterday. What I'm more impressed with is a child who went through that critical thinking process, who thought about the answer, and then who offered you an explanation, who offered you defense, who decided that they wanted to cite some text, that they wanted to give you references from maybe other colleagues in the classroom, because that's the goal and dream that I have for my children. That's the goal and dream that I have for my students, for my teachers. And I know that you have those same dreams and same goals. And so I came here today to thank you for all the hard work. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody out there in Birmingham, I know that you are doing everything you can to help our children become successful. But if not for people like you, I wouldn't be here today, because you go that extra mile. You give those children what they need. And so I'm begging you, please never, ever give up on those children, because you are the last in the line for those children. You are Saving Private Ryan every day. Saving Private Ryan. Some of these children are the last in their family to have a chance to go to college and graduate and come back and inspire others to do the same thing. And we know that there are people who did it for us. And so I want to say to all of you out here in this fine city and in this state, that I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'll be back. Because my next goal is I want to be able to meet some of these children and get them to understand that they need to come back and give back to the same community. They can't all go out and become everybody who leaves the community. Somebody's got to come back and teach. Somebody's got to come back and become a nurse, become a counselor, become a kindergarten teacher, a paraprofessional, a bus driver, work in that lunchroom with those children that are so picky over the same food they know they will eat for the next 10 years. Somebody's got to come back and do that, and I know that you're inspiring those children to do great things. God bless you, and thank you very much, and I look forward to coming back and look forward to getting a chance to meet some of you today before I head out of town. And thank you to my colleague principals for being here and supporting me and supporting the teachers and children and parents in Birmingham, because without you, I know it can't be done. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
We want to thank Principal L for his words today. Certainly we all found something that we can use, whether we're talking about principals and the instructional leadership that they provide not only for teachers, but for students in that building and for the parents in that community to really commit to the efforts that we know that are so very much needed, whether it's to our teachers who we know put forth so much effort, but we want to certainly guide those efforts and make sure that not only are we having success for individual students, but we're having successes again in our classrooms, in our schools, because every student matters. And we know it's a hard road, but we also know it is so critical and so very important that all of our students succeed. Times are changing, and our students are going to need to be able to perform and demonstrate skills and ability, critical thinking at a level that we've never asked students as a whole to do in the past. So while our work is so critical and is so very much appreciated, the stakes continue to rise and are so important. And the linkages that we have and we talk about here in Birmingham, the bright spots that we have, but what we want to see here is in every classroom, in every school, across this school system, that we're making sure and ensuring that our students are reaching new heights and new abilities that we know they are so very capable of, so that we do our part not only in changing our schools, but changing the future trajectory of Birmingham City Schools, of our community. And you are so critical in this work. I want to thank you all for tuning in this morning, and we're going to take this information to light as we go through today, as we work on those formative assessments, as we work on delivery of instruction that is meaningful and can move this work forward as we transition, meeting our strategic plan goals, but also meeting the college and career standards that we know face us in the future as well. Thank you so very much, and let's have a great day and continue to move forward here in Birmingham City Schools.